Alright, so welcome back to another video here on my channel. If it's your first time here, my name is Anton and I'm a Swedish filmmaker slash photographer on the journey to becoming a full-time freelancer. One of the things I do on this channel is I try to give you guys some tips and tricks about troubles that I've had in my past 2 years since I picked up the camera, and one of those things is sound design, so that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we jump into that, I really want to give a huge shout out to all of my subscribers. 2,100 plus now. We hit 2K a few weeks ago and it's just unreal, and I don't think you guys understand that it's the comments that you guys give and the feedback that you guys give me that really motivates me to make new videos. And I know that's what everybody says, but it's true. Like, I could be on the way to the gym and I see somebody commenting like, oh, really great stuff. And then I can be like, oh, I need to go home and make a video, you know? Huge thank you to all of you guys, and keep commenting, keep liking and all that good stuff. I really appreciate it, and I read every single comment. With that said, let's jump into the sound design. Ooh. If you watched my previous videos, you already know this, but when I was in Asia in the beginning of this year, I took a day and went out in the streets of Hanoi and shot a cinematic sequence. And this is kind of the part 3 video in a series where I talk about how I created that sequence. And the part 1 is a video where you can see some behind the scenes, how I got the shots and stuff. Part 2, we jump into Premiere and I talk a little bit about the edit and like my creative process and stuff. And this is the part 3 where we're gonna talk about the sound design basically. So feel free to go watch those videos. I'm gonna leave them down in the description. And if you don't want to do that, I'm gonna roll that cinematic sequence right now so you can see what I'm talking about. Alright, so here we are in Premiere Pro and you can see the project file in all its glory. And if you're wondering why I changed outfit, by the way, is because this is actually a couple of hours later. I ran into some technical issues and then I had to leave. But yeah, if we're gonna start breaking this down a bit, the first thing I really want to talk about when it comes to videos that I see on YouTube or videos that I made in the beginning as well, is that people usually have way too high volume on their sound effects. You really gotta lower the volume, and as you can see, I've lowered it all the way down on most of these clips here. The middle is like the normal, and basically every single clip is lowered. And that's because you don't want it to sound so obvious, you know. Obviously, since we're filmmakers, we're gonna see a video and we're gonna react and like analyze the sounds. But the average viewer, you don't want them to go like, oh, that's an added sound effect. You want them to be like, just not even notice it and think that it's there, because that's how it kind of works with sound design. While we're actually on the topic of volume, you should also be playing around with the keyframes, like you see I've done here. Basically, all these little dots here are the keyframes for the volume, and the way to do this is you just go into the sound effect or the audio file and you control click, and that makes a little dot, and then you can like drag it up and down and you can just create all kinds of patterns. And that's really useful, first of all, for fading in the sound, like in the beginning, like having a nice fade. You can also right click and do the crossfade, but that doesn't give you as much like freedom, if you will. So yeah, just fading in the sound, and also like if there's a part of the sound effect that you don't like, for example, I know down here, this clip, I've lowered it all the way down here because in the actual audio file, as you can hear here, there was some really loud like cars and horns and stuff, so I just lowered that a lot because I didn't want that present in the video at that moment in time. Usually having these like smooth transitions and fades and stuff, that's gonna pretty much make or break the whole sound effect experience, kinda. Another little tip I guess I could say is to actually start the sound effect before the actual clip. Let's say you have a clip of a car going down a road, and then you're gonna transition to a clip where somebody's driving a boat, just random example. If you start the sound effect of the boat and slowly fade it in, even before you even transition to that clip, your brain is gonna register the sound, and it's just gonna make the transition more seamless without you even noticing it. And that's like a really known technique in the filmmaking world. If you watch for it, you're gonna see it everywhere, like in documentaries or whatever. You can like hear somebody starts talking, and then like 1 second after they cut to that person talking. And yeah, it's a really effective way to make it more seamless and immersive. And before we leave this point, I kind of want to show you, there's a perfect example in actually one of my first YouTube videos. Alright, so here we have the very first video that I ever created, like a cinematic edit that I uploaded to YouTube, and all of the stuff I talk about in this video, I basically made those mistakes here. So I know that in the beginning here I have this shot of a train. Again, that's a pretty high train sound. I would have lowered that a lot more if it was now. And then we got that. And then we transition into that, and we just cut the train sound straight away. Can you hear that? And it's like a straight up cut. And then we got some way too obvious bird sounds here in the background as well. But we can come back to this video later actually. But that's just the point I want to make. You want to fade the sounds to make it more seamless. Alright, so point number 2. Usually when you're a beginner, you might be filming something, like for example a dog, and you're like, oh, I should have a dog sound effect. And you put the dog barking sound effect on there and you think you're done. That's not gonna sound super good. I actually did that in the video as well, like the first video. You want to create like the whole atmosphere of sounds. The first step to doing that is to have like your main ambient background noise or background sound. In my case, in this video, it's this layer down here. It's called India-Mumbai traffic. And the original sound file, we listened to it earlier. It's like cars and scooters and people talking and just a city ambient sound effect thing, you know. And this goes through all the way down here. Obviously I've played around with the volume like we talked about earlier, but that's like my base ambient layer. And after you have that, maybe like in your video you might not be able to use the same one the whole way through, but after you have that, you can go in and like, for example, when we have this guy here, we have some sound of some cutlery here in the background. And I just put it there very subtle in the background to make it feel like there's maybe some plates going around him. Like, I don't even know if he's actually sitting in a restaurant. I can't remember, but you're creating the whole vibe, you know? And I don't know if there's any other good examples. Yeah, maybe here. You see this lady here is sitting on the train track, and there's not even a train here, but I figured I could add like a train sound in the background, because that's just gonna like help with the conveying the fact that it's a train track. And we have another one down here actually. So there's a train pass by effect, and there is a train whistle blow effect, along with some other sounds up here. Let's see what this is. That's just the original sound, like the background sound. That's one of the great things when you're filming in cities like this. You can usually utilize the real background sound a lot of the times. All the blue you can see here is actual camera sound. Let's see what we got over here. That is the actual camera footage, and you can kind of hear the broom going in the background. The lady with the broom there. So you can definitely utilize your camera sound sometimes when you're filming in situations like this. The point I wanted to make is that you have to create the full atmosphere of sounds to make it more immersive. you can't just put the sound of the stuff that you see on the screen. You have to try to create the whole vibe around it. And with that said, let's jump to the next point. Alright, so the third point I want to talk about is finding the right sound effects and what to do when you put them in Premiere Pro. I'd say that the number one problem for me when it comes to sound design is to actually find the right sound effect. The thing that usually makes it so hard is that you have something specific in mind and you're trying to find exactly that. But that's not usually gonna be the case. You have to like think a little bit outside the box, and maybe if you have some sound effects you can play around with them to try to convey what you want to convey. An example of that in this video is here in the beginning. I wanted to have some kind of sound effect for this lady walking with the cart here. I don't know if you can hear that, very subtle, and that sound effect is called Wheel Turns Metal. And it basically sounds like this. And that doesn't sound too good, but when I've lowered the volume and I put some, let's see, I put some surround reverb on it, we're gonna talk about that later, and just played around with it, and it actually sounds pretty good. And I mean, that's a pretty random sound effect, and I don't think it's supposed to be a cart, but it does the trick. And the other one over here is called Squeak Metal Hinge, and it sounds like this. So yeah, that's a perfect example of one of the times when you can't just put it on there. You have to play around with these little knobs, and this one is lowered in volume so much so that you can barely see that the fact that it's going up and down, but I've actually muted parts of the sound. Let's listen to it right here. Like some of the very loud squeaks, I actually muted them completely because it was too over the top, but when you see it in perspective with all the other sounds around it, I think it sounds pretty good. Yeah, so another perfect example of when I had to use like some different kind of sound effect that didn't even match what I wanted to do is over here, and this is actually my favorite part in this video. Let's listen to the sound design going on here. So she's cutting up the meat, and the sound effect you can hear here in the end when she's dragging out, I actually think that's a sword. Let's see if I remember correctly. Yeah, weapon sword removed from sheath. And I mean, it sounds like a knife. So a lot of the times you're not even gonna find the right sound effect, but you have to just play around with them and put some effects on them and it's gonna sound good. Let's get into the next point, which is some concrete like tips, straight down, do this and it's gonna make your sound effect better kind of thing. And my favorite one is 100% a thing that's called surround reverb. And basically what that does, it makes the sound less obvious with just like one hit wonder. So let's take some example sound effect here. What do we have here? Alright, so we have a India rural village atmosphere sound effects here. Let's put it over here and listen to it. Really low volume. Alright, so that's the way it sounds, and then we go into effects here and we search for surround reverb. Boom. You go into edit and you choose the one that's called somewhere not here. I don't know if you can actually hear the difference. Yeah, you can. It just makes it like a little lower volume and some reverb, and I just put that on basically everything that I like. Every single sound effect almost has that effect. So let's see, this one, surround reverb. This one, surround reverb, and it just makes it less. It makes it exactly what it says. Somewhere not here. It's like it's here, but it's not super obvious. So that's a really good tip that I use for basically every sound effect that I have. My second next favorite thing to do is to put reverb on the sound effect, because it just makes it sound so much better. And if we take a look at the sound effect right here, you can hear what I'm talking about. You can hear it's like really echoey, and if we just drag this over here and break it down, because it's actually kind of tricky, or not tricky, but you have to do it in a certain way to make it that good, I guess. So you might be wondering, why is this nested? And that's exactly what I'm going to show you. So let's drag out the original sound file and put it up here. And the way you would do to get the reverb on there is to go into effects, and you can do this in a lot of different ways, but this is the way I do it. And you put mastering on it, and then you edit, and we drag this down a little bit, and then we drag up the reverb, and that makes it sound like this. Oh, we have to solo that track. So you see, we have the reverb on there, but it stops as soon as the clip stops, and that's not what we want. So the way to get around this, you nest the clip like this, and then you jump into the nest, and you just take a little piece here of the end, and you drag it all the way over here, and then you take the mastering effect that you put on the sound clip, you copy it, delete it from here, you go out here, you put that on the nest, like the reverb, and then you can drag out the nest. So basically, that means like you can drag out the sound effect more, and the reverb is gonna stay on there. It's kind of weird, but that's just the way it works. So you basically drag this way, you put this thing over here, and that's how long you can drag the nest. And that way you can put reverb, even though the sound effect ended, you can like have the reverb still be there. Reverb actually works really well on like bird sounds as well. It makes it sound a lot more dreamy and less obvious. We're coming back to the less obvious all the time because that's what you want. So yeah, that's my second tip. I guess my third tip is to play the sounds backwards sometimes. I know for a fact that I was looking for a long time for sound effects that sound exactly like this. Can you hear that? It's like ramping up, like a swoosh, but not a swoosh. And the way I found that, or the way I got that, is I just put it backwards. The original sound sounds like this. So what I did, we can drag that out here. I just removed the hit. So there's no big hit, and then we put it in reverse. And that way you have like a reversed thing that's creates, what's it called? Creates tension or whatever. You know the word I'm looking for. All right, so my fourth tip is to actually change the pitch of the sound effect. And while we're on it, we can use the same one that we had earlier with the sword here. The one that sounds like this. And we can go into effects over here and search for pitch. There we go. And you throw it on there, and you go into edit, and you can drag it down. I guess it wasn't a perfect example of when to use the pitch shifter, but I think you get the point. You can basically make swoosh sounds. Let's take this one instead to make a better example. You can make them sound like deeper or lighter, or let's see here. So the original one is sounding like this. And if you want it to sound a bit more deep, we can change the pitch, drag it down a little bit. And it makes it sound a bit deeper, I guess. I'm sorry, that was not a really good example, but I think you get the point. You can just play around with all these different effects to see what you find. I mean, most of this stuff, I just went into the audio effects over here, and I just looked through the list and tried to apply lots of these stuff on the audio clips, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, you know. And my fifth and final tip is gonna be something called low pass, and this is useful in sound design and also when you're having like a voiceover or something. And basically what it is, it's this. If we solo this track, you can hear that it kinda went down like very bassy. Can you hear that? It's like, it's somewhere down there and it like removes the harsh sounds and stuff. I don't know in technical terms exactly what it does, but it makes it sound like bassy and below, you know. A lot of the times when people have voiceovers or something, they use it to have the sound some like in the background. I think you're gonna understand. If we apply the effect here, low pass, we put it to 600, and the music down here is gonna sound like this. And the original obviously is like this. You hear the difference? And yeah, like I said, you can use it behind, like if you want music behind a voiceover or something, and you can, if you have a voiceover in your video, you can put a bit of low pass on the other sounds to like make the focus more on your voice. All right, so that's kind of the end of this video, guys. I hope it made sense to you. Like, God, it's been such a pain recording this video. I wanted to go into a lot more depth actually, but like I'm just gonna say it, like I had to restart Premiere Pro like maybe 40 times during this recording. I had to restart the screen recording and everything because it started lagging really bad. I don't know what's going on. Like as soon as I like was in the program for 5 minutes, it started lagging really bad. But yeah, I just I hope you learned something, and if you have any questions, please leave them down below. Maybe I'll make another sound effects video in the future and try to be more clear and specific. Yeah, I guess that's it for this video, and I'm gonna leave some links down below to some sound effects that I downloaded for free that you can use, that I like. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and subscribe and hit the like button and do whatever you feel like, and I'll see you in the next one. So peace.